Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mina, and today's video we are doing another sit-down discussion type of video, which is exciting. And I am going to be discussing with you guys the book Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough, and also comparing and contrasting it a little bit with the TV series that Netflix just came out with last week. So if you guys don't know, Behind Her Eyes is a thriller. It's kind of speculative in some ways, and it came out, I believe, I want to say 2018, so it's been a couple of years. 2017. It's been a couple of years that this book came out, and I actually did not read this when it first came out. I think I saw it like on a couple of booktubers channels, and people were talking about it when it first came out, and I originally wanted to pick it up because Kayla from Books and Lala talked about this book and how trippy and weird the ending of this book was, and she absolutely loved it. And we have like kind of a similar taste when it comes to thrillers and weird things in books, so I was like, maybe I should pick this up. And I did, and I didn't read it for like an entire year. It was on my bookshelf, and finally when Netflix announced that there would be a series adaptation for this book coming out in February, I was like, okay, I really need to read this book. I need to read it before the show comes out so that I could actually watch the show and enjoy it and know everything that happens. So I did decide to pick it up recently. I read it like the first week of February, and the TV series came out last Wednesday, which was the 17th. So I finished reading this. I absolutely loved it. It was a slow start, but I did end up loving it. And then me and my husband just binged the limited series on Netflix over the weekend. So I have quite a lot of thoughts about this book that I would like to share with you guys. I kind of wanted to focus on some of the similarities between the series and the book, and kind of talk about which one I prefer and which one I would recommend more. So yeah, that is what this video is going to be about. I do want to give a disclaimer that this video is going to be completely filled with spoilers for obviously both the book and the limited series, so definitely know that going in. If you have not already read the book or watched the show and you are planning to do so, do not watch this video, because this is a book that really relies on mystery and secrecy in order for you to enjoy it, at least I think. So going into this book or TV show knowing the twists and the reveals is kind of going to kill it for you. So please watch the show, read the book, and you can always come back and watch this video, but this is going to be spoiler filled going forward, okay? So warning you guys now. So I'm going to start off by telling you guys a little bit about the plot of this book, and I'm going to spoil things, and then I will get into the similarities, the differences, things that I liked, things that didn't really work when it came to the TV show, and ultimately, which one do I recommend more. So this book is a domestic type of thriller, and it follows our main character, whose name is Louise, and she is a single mom. She's divorced, and her ex-husband cheated on her. So she kind of feels like she's in a very low place in her life at the moment. She doesn't really care too much for her job. She feels pretty lonely. She doesn't have many friends, and her entire life is pretty much just devoted to her son and taking care of him. She isn't really happy where she is in life right now. And one evening she decides to go to a bar. She meets a guy. She kind of develops a crush for him, and they kiss, but nothing further happens after that. And she kind of like lets it go, but still fantasizes about him, I guess. And the next day she goes to her job. She has a new boss and realizes that the new boss is the man from the bar the night before. And it's super awkward and uncomfortable, and they're kind of like, let's just forget anything happened. A couple days later, she runs into a woman and she befriends the woman, and it turns out that the woman is her boss's wife. So she's kind of navigating between these two relationships, her friendship to her boss's wife, and she's also still hung up and still involved, romantically involved with her boss. So it's kind of like a relationship triangle, not really a love triangle, but she's kind of like balancing between her loyalty to her new friend, who is the wife of the man that she is sleeping with. So it is kind of like drama and soap opera-esque, which is not really like my type of thriller that I enjoy reading. So it did take me a while to get into this story. I don't really like cheating and affair plots, specifically in thrillers, so I had a hard time getting into the book, but as the book continued, it started to get increasingly darker and more mysterious and more interesting. There was mention of lucid dreaming and astral projection, and it basically turns out that the wife, spoiler alert, was plotting this whole time. She knew about the affair, and she was trying to turn Louise against the husband. That's like one twist that happens. So we do find out that she's evil. We also learn that through these astral projection moments, Adele, who is the wife, is able to see and project herself into any situation and kind of like spy on Louise and the husband. So that's how she knew about the affair. And then it turns out by the end of the book that the wife is not who she says she is. There is actually another person within Adele's body, and it gets kind of complicated for me to explain like who that person is, but he ended up falling in love with Adele's husband and switched bodies with Adele. And yeah, I know that that's kind of confusing, and I feel like I'm not doing a good job of explaining it, but there's so many details and I don't want to spend too much time on the plot. This is supposed to be a video for people who have already read and seen the show, so you should kind of know what I'm talking about, but I do want to get into some of the things that I found that were similar and different between the book and the TV show. I do want to say automatically, I definitely did enjoy the TV series. I think that it was a strong adaptation of the book. I think that they did it very faithfully, and the pacing of the show worked really well with the events of the book. So I did like both of them, but like I said, there's some things that I noticed that were different. So number one, we get multiple perspectives, and what I mean by multiple perspectives, I mean inner monologue type of perspectives in the book that we don't necessarily see or are able to see within the TV show. In the book, we are reading from both Louise's perspective as well as Adele's, the wife. So we kind of get to see inside their heads, their emotions, their feelings, and in the show you can't really do that much unless you have like voiceover, which they did not do. So because of that reason, I felt like in the book we were able to sympathize more with Adele throughout the plot up until the very end, because we got a little bit more of her internal struggle and things that she was thinking about with her relationship to David and her feelings. So I think that that painted her in a much more positive light at first in the book, versus in the TV series we didn't get that internal monologue of Adele, and I think that they made it quite obvious from like the beginning of the show that something was up with her, that she was evil or she was plotting something. There were a lot of things that even my husband noticed, and he didn't read the book, but he automatically assumed that there was something wrong with Adele and that she was keeping secrets and that she was bad. The music that they used every time Adele showed up was literally like suspicious, ominous music, so you could kind of tell like already something was up. They also would show her like staring ominously at Louise and just like always having this expression on her face like she knew something that everybody else didn't. And I get it. Usually when you're watching a film, a TV show, directors will like throw in these little hints and tidbits so that you can kind of assume things along the way. But I think for me as a reader, I really enjoyed not knowing whether Adele was good or bad all the way up until like 80% of the book. I think that that added to the mystery, and in the show we didn't really get too much of that mystery. We kind of already knew that something was up with Adele. The other thing that I noticed that was different was that in the book, Rob's character, and Rob is the guy who inhabits Adele's body, and he's basically Adele for the whole show and the whole book, but we didn't know that Rob was gay until the very end of the book. And I think that that serviced the book very well, as opposed to how they did it within the show. Within the show, we get little hints and clues that he is gay. He kind of like jokes about it, but they also show him like kind of fawning over David when they first meet, like the way that he stares at him, and then like the little slow-mo scene where he's first embracing Adele and Rob's kind of just like staring at him and like only him and not really Adele. I was like, oh my God, it is so obvious. They shouldn't have done this. In the book, we did not know that he was even interested in men until the very end. And I think that that is what made the twist so shocking when I was reading it. And like for everybody else, like nobody would have suspected that. But I think the fact that they hinted at his sexuality so early on and so frequently, it made it seem like he had a larger, I guess, position within the plot than what we are assumed to believe from the beginning. So I think in the show they shouldn't have really revealed that so early on. They should have kept it more mysterious, or at least played it down a little bit so that we wouldn't already assume that he had feelings for David. I also think that in terms of the TV show, the idea of astral projection was also revealed way too early on. Again, I don't know if this is because I knew the events of the plot going in, but like I said, I was watching this with my husband. He didn't know anything that was going on. I didn't tell him anything, but they had this scene, I think maybe in the 3rd episode or so, which is about halfway through the limited series. They basically show Adele sleeping in bed, and then they flash to a moment where she's kind of like hovering and like spying on Louise and David. We don't see her hovering, but like we see that perspective above them, and it flashes back and forth between her sleeping body and then that hovering perspective. So we can kind of put 2 and 2 together and figure out that she is somehow transferring her consciousness and spying on them, and that's how she knows all of this information. Versus in the book, we didn't know this. Astral projection was like brought up a lot later in the book, and even Louise didn't know that Adele was able to project herself. She kind of figured that it was her own ability and not something that Adele knew about, and it was questioned for a while. She was like, does Adele know about this? Does she know about the second door? Has she used it before? She didn't really know. Versus in the series, we already saw that halfway through. So again, it kind of killed the mystery of whether or not Adele was innocent or whether she was up to something. And it really just brought things a lot faster and brought the mysteries a lot faster than they were in the book. So I feel like I didn't appreciate that aspect. If I was watching the show, I probably would I would have figured it out, or some of the reveals out, a lot sooner than from just reading the book. Another difference that I noticed between the TV show and the book is that in the TV show, they added an extra layer to Louise's backstory with her night terrors. They show in some of her nightmares that she is dreaming about a woman, and I think it's her mother, I think she mentions that, who is either like really sick or dead in bed, and there's like a pill bottle that spills, and she's constantly redreaming this. And that was not something that was mentioned at all in the book. She only had night terrors about her son, and nothing was mentioned about her family or her mom, anything like that. And I think the reason why they decided to do this within the show is because it kind of allowed Louise an excuse to be more sympathetic towards Adele when she sends her text suicide at the end, and like it gives us a reason for why Louise would actually go and help Adele after everything. I don't know how I feel about it. On one hand, I'm like, okay, that's kind of clever, because if you were in Louise's position, you would be like, oh my God, why is she going to save Adele after everything Adele has done? Like, why is she so sympathetic? And kind of seeing that backstory with the overdose and her mom dying, that is sort of like a motivating factor for her not wanting to experience that again and wanting to save someone's life. So I get that, but at the same time, I feel like it brings Louise's character down a bit, because I think part of her character is that she is super good-natured, and that even though Adele has done all of these things to her and, you know, whatever, she's lied to her, even through all of that, she still goes forth and helps her. And I think that that speaks a lot more to Louise's character than having that reason for why she is sympathetic towards her. So I don't really know how I feel about that change. It doesn't do too much, but that was just kind of my interpretation of why they did that in the TV show. And I don't know if I necessarily agree with it. And I don't know if I think that that, like I said, represents her character as well as not having that part of her backstory. Another huge change from the book to the TV series that I actually really appreciate and respect is that Marianne's cat was not killed in the TV show. That was like one of the scenes that I was reading in the book that I had a very hard time reading. You guys know I have 2 cats, and even before I had my cats, I definitely wasn't able to deal with animal cruelty scenes. When I was reading The Troop, I had a really hard time, and just anytime there is an animal cruelty scene, I hate it, like I'm sure most people do. And so the fact that it was included in here definitely took away from like my enjoyment of the book. I understand its purpose, but it was definitely not needed in my opinion, and I'm so glad that the TV series decided to take that scene out, because that is just something that nobody wants to see, and like I said, completely unnecessary. And the last difference that I want to talk about is towards the end of the TV show and the book. In the book, Rob is so cruel that he says that he is planning on getting rid of Adam, which is Louise's son. Once he transfers into Louise's body, he's like, I just want to be with David. I'm going to get rid of Louise's son. He pretty much hints at that at the end of the book, which is super creepy and again speaks to the kind of character and the kind of villain that he is, versus in the TV show we don't see that. They're on the road after David and him got remarried and Adam's in the back seat, and you can kind of tell that Adam knows something is up and that isn't his mom, but he never mentions anything about getting rid of Adam. And I don't know if that's because, again, we don't actually hear the thoughts of these characters, and so maybe that's why. But I just have to say that that ending of the TV show with Louise/Rob grinning creepily at Adam in the back seat was so unsettling. They did a really good job with that. That was a really creepy expression. Oh my god. Okay, so those are all of the similarities and differences and things that I found between the book and the show. I absolutely loved both, and I enjoyed my experience reading the book and watching the TV series, and I would totally recommend for anybody who loves a good twisty book, a good twisty TV show. But I think ultimately I preferred some of the choices of the book more than I did in the TV series, and I think that if you had to choose between one and you don't want to do both, I would recommend reading. But I think you can enjoy both. I think you can read the book first and then watch the show and still enjoy it, and I think you can watch the show first and come back to the book and still enjoy it. So those are just my opinions, and please do let me know what your thoughts were if you read the book, watched the show, or both. What did you guys think? I'm always interested in hearing your guys' opinions and thoughts about the things that I enjoy watching and reading, so please let me know your thoughts below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you all very soon. I hope everybody has a wonderful day today. Bye guys!